Good evening and welcome to the show. Welcome to Raw Politics, Your Call. Over the next 45 minutes, we want to hear what you've got to say on some of the biggest issues facing Europe, particularly as in the next hour or so, we're going to find out here in Strasbourg who is going to replace Jean-Claude Juncker and become the next Commission President of the European Union, or indeed, potentially not. As I say, good evening. Welcome live to the European Parliament here in Strasbourg. MEPs have been voting for the last hour or so to decide whether, I should say, Ursula von der Leyen will become the next Commission President, or indeed whether they want to chuck her out and start the process all over again. The expectation, I think, amongst MEPs is that she is probably going to cross over the line, though it could be pretty close, and no one is certain that she definitely will do so. If she does, though, of course, she becomes the first female Commission President of the European Union. Could be quite a significant moment. Tonight, we want to hear your views, your thoughts on what you think of her and indeed the process that has led to her being the lead candidate, and indeed, of course, what you think her view on Brexit is. These are the questions tonight. Would you back Ursula von der Leyen? You haven't got a say in it, but if you did, would you be behind her? Was the top job process democratic? Many, of course, argue it isn't and hasn't been. But do you think it is? At the end of the day, MEPs, the people you elected, are voting on her. And is von der Leyen ready to allow a Brexit extension? She did suggest that she is willing potentially to allow that Brexit extension beyond October 31st, if required. Anyway, before we get your calls on that, let's see exactly what it's going to take for her to secure that win here tonight. We were hoping potentially get the result during this programme, though I'm told by my two esteemed MEP guests that is unlikely at this stage. But let's go into the chamber, into the Parliament. It's pretty empty at the moment, as we think most, in fact, it's incredibly empty at the moment, where we think most MEPs have probably now voted. But, of course, it all has to be counted by hand, which will take a while. But also we must emphasise that even though there are 751 MEPs, I think there are only 747 who've been allowed to take their seats, not least of all because of the Catalans. And in addition to that, actually, it's only when she gets an absolute majority that she wins. So we keep mentioning this 374 figure, and that is true if everyone votes. At the moment, the expectation is that there will be abstentions. In fact, we don't think everyone is there. So that figure might lower, but it doesn't necessarily mean just because she doesn't get to 374 that she doesn't win. She just needs an absolute majority. Anyway, we'll keep you posted on what's happening in there. But first of all, let's bring our two guests in. First of all, what did you make of what she had to say this morning? Because this was a kind of full, big, final pitch to you guys. Did she win you over?
Who of us do you want to start?
Whoever wants to go.
Well, I think she gave the speech of her life this morning, and I think she convinced many MEPs on the spot. I think this was not an easy decision for any of us, especially for my group, as we've been very much working in favor of the idea of Spitzenkandidat. But the problem we saw that there was a broad interpretation of what Spitzenkandidat process is and what the regulation in the treaty means, that the council proposes someone taking the result of the election into account. For the Conservatives, it meant they're the largest party, so it must be a Conservative candidate. For others, it meant a candidate that can get a majority in the parliament. So this process has shown that we need a reform, that we need it written down in paper, that we need a crystal clear framework and not a gentleman's agreement if we want to have Spitzenkandidat process in the future.
I can you in a second, Rob, but how can that happen with someone who essentially has never been involved in the Brussels process before, actually has been brought in from the outside? Isn't it slightly ironic that she's now saying, well, I'm actually going to give this place more powers and you more powers, even though I've been foisted upon you?
This was really not an easy decision for me. I decided to support her. It was not unconditional support. I supported her because of the promise she made to deliver on democratic reform, to create a conference for the future of Europe that shall work out such democratic reforms, such as transnationalist, as a written down Spitzenkandidat principle. So it's more than just a gentleman's agreement, and especially the right for legislative initiative right for the parliament. So I decided to take this now. This, for me, is a short-term backlash for European democracy in order to gain a long-term win with reforms for European democracy.
Okay, Terence Murphy tweeting in saying, I would back Ursula and happy with the democratic selection process. I would most definitely support a Brexit extension, which might eventually mean that Brexit goes away. We're going to come on to that in a second with Rupert, but I think we've got Paul joining us from Poland via Skype. Good evening, Paul. How are you? What do you think? Are you convinced by Ursula von der Leyen? Do you think she should become the Commission President tonight?
I need to check. Is my mic working?
It is. We can hear you loud and clear. Don't worry.
Okay, great. So, sorry, what did you say? Sorry, say that again.
I was just asking you whether you back Ursula von der Leyen, whether you think she'd be a good next Commission President or not.
Well, she's got the pedigree, certainly. She's. I've been watching today, Euronews and on France 24 as well, actually. There's a lot of kind of positive kind of stories about her past, about where she was born, who her parents were. She seems to have an authentic kind of European and EU pedigree.
But many people would point out she's not being necessarily the best defence minister in Germany. She's not very well known, and most of us have not had a say on whether she gets this job or not.
Well, this has given me something to think about. I think what it's said to me is that the EU is still in a process of gestating. I don't think it's properly born yet. This process of her nomination and not an appointment seems to have been something of a formality. I'm really puzzled by this secret ballot. Why does it need to be secret? Because as an ordinary person, that just kind of makes you suspicious, especially with how it came about, with the abandonment of the Spitzenkandidat process.
So yeah, well, I'm going to just hold on a second, Paul, because I'll put that actually. Rupert, I assume you're equally perplexed about why this is a secret ballot. But of course, British MPs, when they were choosing who the next Conservative leader should be, also voted in secret.
Well, first of all, I didn't vote for Ursula von der Leyen, so I came into today's speeches with an open mind. I was very depressed about the way in which she appeared from nowhere. As you quite rightly say, a quick look at her CV would suggest that she wasn't the right person for the job. She was shoehorned in at the last minute. The Spitzenkandidaten process was completely overridden. And all I listened to this morning was what I call verbal baby food. It was hollow promises, and what deals she's done, I don't know. Whether she ends up being elected, I don't know. But on the basis of what I heard, I couldn't possibly vote for her. So that's...
Do you at least recognise that? I mean, this. Okay, so she's been nominated by 28 heads of state who are all democratically elected, or heads of government, and she's now been confirmed or not by 751 directly elected MEPs.
Well, we'll find out. We'll find out.
Can you recognise that that's a democratic process?
It's not a democratic process. The process has been far from democratic. In fact, I came here, I stood for the Brexit Party because our democracy was ignoring the vote of the British people, and 3 years on since we had our June referendum, and nothing had happened. And the sort of vote we got showed the depth of feeling in the UK, and these people care about their democracy, and they weren't being delivered democracy. To come here 2 weeks ago and see the process by which Ursula von der Leyen appeared was depressing in itself, and then to see the way in which the whole place is operated today is even more depressing. So for me, I haven't voted for her, and it's simply reconfirmed or doubly reconfirmed the fact that we will be better as a sovereign nation, our sovereign nation with our own currency and our own trade arrangements.
I'm sorry, this is dangerously populistic what they're saying there. It was a process which is in line with the treaties. Spitzenkandidat was a gentleman's agreement, and that is the problem. We need reforms.
But why a secret ballot tonight? That was a fair question from Paul there. Why are you guys voting in secret?
It's a very good question.
I think that is the default option for any election of person. That's basically in most of parliaments, in most institutions, that it is a secret ballot.
Okay. Are you convinced by that? Paul, thank you very much, by the way, for calling in. We want your views on that. We've got you calling in, indeed. I'm going to take your calls. You know what the number is. It's 0032 22830283. Or indeed, you can text us on 081 234. We want to know what your views are on Ursula von der Leyen. Do you think she's good for the job? Do you think the process was democratic? And also, are you looking forward to a Brexit extension, essentially? Pick up the phone, get in touch. We'll be speaking to you and to them in about a minute or so. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Your call. We're live here in the European Parliament in Strasbourg, and I think we can take you yet again, just briefly, inside the chamber, the hemicycle here, which is actually just right behind me, where, as you can see, there's not many MEPs in there at the moment, but they have been voting over the last hour or so to decide whether Ursula von der Leyen, the current and outgoing German defence minister, should become the next Commission President, the first female Commission President. We are expecting a result, hopefully in the next hour or so, and we'll bring we'll bring you that when we get it. Anyway, let's get back to tonight's questions about Ursula von der Leyen and whether you think she would be a good Commission President. Also asking you whether she was right to allow a Brexit extension or suggest that she would be open to that. But also we want to know, was the top job process democratic? And on that note, let's bring in Roy, who joins us on the phone from the Netherlands. Good evening, Roy. What do you reckon? Do you think this process that might lead to Ursula von der Leyen becoming the Commission President was democratic?
Good evening, Darren. Yes and no. The process is a product of the structure of the European Union. And in my opinion, it's reflective also of the fact that there's much controversy throughout the European Union on the structure, and she's promising to change it. She's promising to change the structure so that it becomes more democratic, which is a very positive attribute for her to pursue.
What do you make of her personally, though? Are you a fan? Have you been won over by her? Did you know her? Have you even heard of her before that EU Council summit, 2 weeks ago?
Well, I believe that she's a relative politic unknown outside of Germany, and she does present herself well. She is a professional, and I do believe that there would be advantages, particularly in the fact that she would be the first woman commissioner, and also by the fact that she comes from a stable background, which is going to be enhancing the commission.
And just also, if she doesn't get elected tonight or confirmed, where do you think that leaves the European Union? Many would say badly damaged and in chaos. Would you agree?
Well, it's a statement of where the European Union is in the current state of affairs, because there's controversy throughout Europe and in every single European land about the structure of the European government, and it desperately needs to implement change to provide a more democratic process. As individuals in the EU, people don't have direct representation, and I think that's a serious flaw in the European government.
A serious flaw in the European government. Thank you very much indeed, Roy, for calling in. It is a serious flaw, isn't it?
Pardon?
It's a serious flaw, isn't it?
Well, it is foreseen in the treaties what will be the process if she not be elected tonight. The council has 1 more month to come forward with another candidate, or maybe her again, that's possible as well. But then it would be really urgent to consult with the parliament and to find a common way forward. So I don't think it's a crisis. It is a way foreseen in the treaties. But that was one of the reasons I supported her tonight as well. I don't think we're in a situation where we should afford having the European Commission in kind of like a loophole hanging, especially with a pending Brexit coming up.
We think that bell means that in about 10 minutes' time, we probably will be getting a result. which we'll bring you. So if you're sitting comfortably, get to the edge of your sofa, because it could be a very close vote, it could be a tense vote, it certainly could be an historic vote, and we'll bring you that on Euronews. So we reckon we're probably going to get a result from inside the European Parliament on whether Ursula von der Leyen will become the next Commission President in the next 10 minutes or so. Of course, we'll bring it to you live. It's all too easy to bash this process, and people would say Europe is not perfect, and no one, I don't think, even the biggest Europhile would argue it is. People would say this is a process, and that actually, you know what, the European Parliament first got elected in 1979. It's now trying to assert its authority again to take it on to the next level. Ursula von der Leyen saying that it can now potentially initiate legislation. Don't you recognise that even though you don't like the place, that actually it is making progress to becoming more democratic?
No, I think it's just more of the same, actually. I think she's a fully committed federal European. She wants a European army. She wants all the trappings of a nation state. And you know what's made Europe great in the past has been it's the competition between the nation states. And I think, for me, the reason we want our sovereignty back, it doesn't have anything to do with trade. You can have a sovereign nation, and sovereign nations trade freely with each other. You don't have to surrender your sovereignty in order to trade with people. And this is where people get confused. So for me, it's been a deeply undemocratic process, and nothing will change my view on that. Europe's had plenty of time to adapt and do this better. We had the Spitzenkandidaten process that was completely overridden. So they had a process, and that process wasn't followed. So for me, I want nation states, I want full cooperation in Europe, and I want free trade. So that for me is the recipe to make Europe great, not some unaccountable superstate. In an era when the digital revolution is allowing people more independence, more freedom, more individuality, why do we want top-down central planning? Central planning doesn't work. Look at the USSR, look at Venezuela, it just doesn't work.
Robert Sloan saying that he thinks it would be ridiculous if Parliament were to vote in favour of von der Leyen today, despite previous criticisms of the undemocratic way in which it was initiated. The European Parliament should maintain the Spitzencandidate process. Neil Jones tweeting in saying, no, today's vote is not democratic. He says, I would have voted against the candidate who's been promoted out of the German government, where she is a failed defence minister. Also goes on to say, no more Brexit extensions. Let's bring in Rudy, who is on the line indeed from Strasbourg, where we are. Good evening, Rudy. What do you think? Are you a fan of Ursula von der Leyen? Would you have voted for her if you could have done?
Good evening. I would not say I'm a fan of her, no. As you might hear from my accent, I hope not too much. I'm also German originally, and what I've seen from her in the Ministry of Defense, and that's due to my young age, pretty much the only office I've seen her in, is pretty unconvincing. And I know Mrs. Hahn and her party, among others, are still investigating her in German Parliament. So that's not very convincing, and I would not consider myself a fan. But when I listened to her over the last few days and read some of her old quotes, it really appeared to me like she was not just some bureaucrat or anything, but someone who was a convinced European, like really down to her heart. And for some reason, I believe she can do a lot better as EU Commission President than as Minister of Defense. And if I may add one more comment, I was actually pretty shocked to hear that Mr. Farage thinks he'll bring communism to Europe. Like, my parents grew up in Eastern Germany. Mr. Lowe, and politics aside, I don't understand how you could possibly support such a statement. So, yeah, that's basically my opinion on it. I think she would do well, and I would back her, yeah.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Rudy, for joining us there. I think we've also got Frank on the line from London. Oh, no, we're not going to go to Frank. We are going to go inside the Parliament, actually, because MEPs are starting to assemble, as you can see there, waiting that result. As I say, we are probably going to get one in the next 5 or 6 minutes, round up about 7:30. Though there are rumours, and I will say only rumours at this stage, that it looks like she has won. Suggestions, I have to say this is unconfirmed, we're going to get the results. Suggestion is that she may have won by 383 votes. So she got over that 374 line, but as I say, unconfirmed, but it looks like she has managed to get over the line. We're going to get the full results inside this Parliament in a couple of minutes' time. Let's bring in Nick, who's on the line from London. Good evening. Oh, he's in the line from Athens, actually, much further away. Good evening, Nick, in Athens. What are you...
Darren.
What do you reckon about tonight? It looks like she's won. Are you happy with that result?
So basically, we have to be pragmatic in this type of procedure. She was not a spitting candidate, which is really we can't say that that's democratic, because it's kind of disrespectful towards the European Parliament and the European Parliament election institution.
We've got something on the line. We can just close down that line. I don't know whether everyone can hear it or not. Not entirely sure what's happening, but the joys of telephones, even here in Europe. Let's just get reaction quickly to that news that it sounds like she has won 383, we reckon. She's won. What do you think? What difference will she make, do you reckon, particularly when it comes to Brexit?
Well, we don't know if she's won yet, but she's obviously won by less than Jean-Claude Juncker. So we have got a bit of democratic.
Well, we don't know how many people voted.
We're potentially won by less, but we've got a bit of democratic creep. So I mean, on balance, it's a pity, because it's an opportunity for the elected Parliament to actually flex their muscles a little bit, which they've chosen not to take. And I don't know what deals have been done in the smoke-filled rooms that since her speech this morning. There were people who gave speeches. They weren't necessarily supportive, but they said that under the right conditions they might support her. So maybe she's facilitated those conditions, but we'll see.
Okay, just very quickly.
If it's that close, it really shows she is a compromise candidate, and we were going to hold her accountable to the promises she made in case she gets elected. Okay, well, I'd say unofficial, but unofficially, at the moment, it looks like she is over the line. We're going to get the actual results in the next couple of minutes from live inside the European Parliament here in Strasbourg. We're going to take another quick commercial break. We'll be back after that with the live results of whether she will be the next Commission President. Welcome back to Raw Politics. You recall quite a frenetic evening, it must be said, inside the European Parliament here in Strasbourg. Let's take you inside the actual chamber. The hemicycle, where MEPs are gathering to await that result. We're going to hear it from David Sassoli, the new Parliament President. He is going to announce in the next couple of minutes whether the current and outgoing German Defence Minister, Ursula von der Leyen, someone who potentially could become the next female Commission President, whether she is going to get that job or not. Now, according to our sources here, unconfirmed, but we do reckon she has managed to get over the line. It looks like she's got 383 in terms of actual numbers of MEPs. We don't know how many has voted, so it's difficult to compare where she is with, let's say, other Commission presidents, but that is certainly well short in terms of absolute numbers that, for example, Jean-Claude Juncker got 5 years ago. So let's wait and see what happens. We're going to get the results, as I say, in the next couple of minutes, but it does look like the European Union is about, in some ways, to have an historic moment. Its first female Commission President, and that is something she has focused on quite a lot today. How important is that? To me, it is actually not the reason I supported her, but it is a very important symbol, and it's a very clear signal. I really liked her part of the speech where she said very clearly her commission will be 50% female commissioners, and I think it is more than about time that we have gender equality in the European institutions.
You must at least. I know there's always, and yeah, here she is. She is now walking into the European Parliament. Ursula von der Leyen, as I say, someone we now expect in the next couple of minutes to be confirmed as the next Commission President. As I say, she's been a German Defence Minister, I think, since 2014, I think. Mother of 7, someone who is fluent in certainly German and English, and seems to speak French as well, very well. She today made a speech trying to woo over all those MEPs who've been voting for the last couple of hours, talking in very broad terms and wide-ranging, everything from climate change through to migration. But I think let's try and listen in now to David Sassoli, the EU Parliament President, who's just about to announce the result. Looking quite nervous there, isn't she, Ursula von der Leyen? Let's have a listen in to the European Parliament.
Results of the vote. The number of votes, 733. A majority of members that make up the Parliament, 374. Votes in favour, 383.
Voti contrari,
Votes against,
327.
327.
Astensioni, 22,
Abstentions,
schede nulle
22, 1
In base a
blank
tali
vote.
risultati, la
And on the
candidata
basis
alla
of these
presidenza
votes,
della
the
Commissione
candidate
europea
for the
proposta dal
President of the
Consiglio europeo e
Commission
quindi è stata
is
eletta
proposed
dal
by the Council and has been
Parlamento
elected by the
europeo. Mi
European
congratulo con la
Parliament. And I would
signora
like to congratulate
Ursula von der
Ms.
Leyen per la
Ursula
sua
von der Leyen
elezione.
for her
Le porgo i miei
election.
migliori auguri
And I
per
wish her all the
l'esercizio
very
del suo
best
mandato.
for her
In
mandate.
conformità
And in
dell'articolo
line with Article 124, paragraph 3 of the Rules of Procedure, I will inform the Council and I will invite them for the Commission President to propose the various Commissioner positions, and there will be a letter informing them of the Parliament's decision.
So you're going to have to tell me what you want me to do.
And I will give it to the President who is here.
So there we go, Ursula von der Leyen receiving, I'm not entirely sure what is in that document, but it looks quite official, and she is now officially going to be the next EU Commission President. But my word, was it close. She got 383 votes, but wins by just 9 votes. No wonder she was looking nervous just before the announcement. Must be said, we got the figures perfectly right here on Euronews. Let's again listen into what David Sassoli is saying, the Parliament President.
The commissioners, the designate commissioners, and you know that we will be very scrupulous in the work that we do here in the Parliament. And you mentioned topics today here in plenary, and we look forward to getting into those in more detail and speaking to the members of the college with those. And then the competent committees will be dealing this. The next few years are going to be very important years, important for the future of the European Union, and we will be successful if there is close cooperation between the European institutions. I will give you the floor so that you can speak to the Assembly. You have the floor, Madam.
Mr. President, and honourable members of this Parliament, I feel so honoured and I'm overwhelmed, and I thank you for the trust you placed in me. The trust you placed in me is confidence you placed in Europe. Your confidence in a united and a strong Europe, from east to west, from south to north. Your confidence in a Europe that is ready to fight for the future, rather than fighting against each other. Your confidence in a Europe that will take the big challenges of our times together. The task ahead of us humbles me. It's a big responsibility, and my work starts now. I thank President Sassoli. I thank all the group leaders. I thank all the members of Parliament who decided to vote for me today. But my message to all of you is, let us work together constructively, because the endeavour is a united, a strong Europe. Thank you very much.
Grazie, signora.
Thank you, Mrs. von der Leyen. And now I will hand over letters to the Council.
And so there we go. We heard just there from Ursula von der Leyen, becomes the first female Commission President. As I say, only just, though, 9 votes in it, which is by far the smallest majority or vote win that any EU Commission President has had since at least the Lisbon Treaty back in 2009. Reaction already coming in via Twitter. Frans Timmermans of the Socialists and Democrats saying, congratulations, today you've won a democratic mandate from the European Parliament to deliver a green and social programme which you presented this morning. Margrethe Vestager says, first female President of the Commission, congratulations, looking so much forward to work with you. It was close. She's there. She's over the line. What difference do you honestly think she will make from the Jean-Claude Juncker Commission? Because actually, when you listen to a speech today, it is a speech that almost he could have delivered.
I honestly think she was more respectful towards the Parliament than Jean-Claude Juncker had been in the past in a lot of his speeches. I mean, it was a very, very close majority she gained. And this is really clear. She is a compromise candidate, and we as a Parliament will hold her accountable for the promises she made from day one on. And she now has to work hard. And I think she's not only owning the Council that she's in this position now, but she owns the Parliament, who very, very thinly supported her. So there are high expectations on her.
Does that matter? Does that matter that it's only 9?
I think it absolutely matters, because she sees there are people that are critical towards her, and there are many people that supported her out of pragmatic reasons and not because they're her biggest fans. I supported her out of pragmatic reasons, and I now want to see her to deliver on the promises she made, especially on the promises for the reform of the European Union for democratic reforms.
Now, one of the things she did bring up in that speech today, and one of the things that potentially you're going to have to deal with, though she is only due to take over this job, must be said, on November 1st, and Britain is due to leave the European Union on October 31st, but she would clearly now play a role in Brexit, if not the withdrawal, potentially the future relationship in some form. Do you think she's going to be a different kind of negotiator than Jean-Claude Juncker, a different kind of figure that Britain will have to deal with?
Well, we'll find out, obviously, when our own Prime Minister, it will be, is chosen by the Conservative Party. We'll find out who she'll be talking to. The Brexit Party has actually moved a suggestion that the European Union starts free trade talks with the UK now. There is no reason why we shouldn't have a free trade agreement between the two countries. We have very established trade links. We have equivalents in a lot of goods and products.
There she is, shaking hands with Silvio Berlusconi, of course, the former Italian Prime Minister. Sorry to interrupt there, Rupert.
That's okay.
Antonio Tajani, who, of course, up until a couple of weeks ago, was the Parliament President. Both of those politicians inside the EPP, so one would have assumed did vote for her. And just to bring you some figures that we've got in, just to confirm then, 383 out of 733 votes that were cast, 327 against. That means that 51% of MEPs, all the total that could have voted for. It was 52% of those that did decide to vote. And people are speculating that apparently means she probably relied upon the Law and Justice Party in Poland, who announced just before the vote that they would back her. Sorry, Robert, you were saying that we're going to have to wait and see.
Well, I was actually saying that in the interests of both us, when we do Brexit, and the European Union, all the peoples in Europe, what we should be doing is reaching a free trade agreement. That is, as I said to you, it's got no link. Free trade has no link with sovereignty. So therefore, we should be able to trade freely and responsibly, and responsible governments would get together and would reach a free trade agreement. That is what is in the interests of Europe.
Well, I think a responsible government and a responsible parliament would now find a way forward out of this deadlock that we see right now in British politics. And really, no one that can want to take over responsibility in politics, maybe in Great Britain or in the European Union, can be in favour of a no-deal Brexit. And Mrs von der Leyen said very clearly, and I support her in that, there is a deal on the table, and I believe there should indeed be a referendum where the British people could vote, is this the deal they want? Do they want a no-deal Brexit, or do they want to stay? And I believe this is the way forward. And if there's for that needed an extension, yes, but not for the Parliament and the government still staying.
No, we had
in
a
this
once-in-a-lifetime referendum, and the British people made a decision. So
it was already twice referendum on being in, so it's not really once in a lifetime.
There's no way we can have another referendum. That would be a catastrophe for democracy.
Let's not end on Brexit. Let's just end on this woman here, Ursula von der Leyen, who's going to become the next Commission President. Just your final thoughts on what's happened, a very narrow vote, but she's got the job. What do you think? How do you think it's going to play out?
Well, I think there's been a bit of democratic creep, as I said. Sadly, not quite enough for the elected body to send a real message. But look, I wish her well. She's got 5 years. It's great that she's a lady. I think that's fantastic. I have no problem with that at all. We've had some great prime ministers who are ladies, like Margaret Thatcher. So I wish her well. But you know, it's a message, as you say, to the Commission.
Just very, very quietly.
She's in a very historic position as the first woman and as a president that so narrowly got elected. And as a member of Parliament, I will hold her accountable to her promises.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us both tonight. Thank you indeed also for calling in and texting in. Much appreciated. A pretty historic night tonight. We're going to leave on those images inside the European Parliament, where Ursula von der Leyen is going to become the next Commission President, the first female Commission President. Continuing coverage throughout the night here on Euronews. For us, for now though, goodbye.